to The Real. We have a fantastic show planned, and there is a lot to discuss. Our girls, Adrian and Jeannie, are under the weather just a little bit, but they're joining us via Zoom. Hey, ladies, how y'all feeling?
Feeling better, Lonnie. Thank you for asking.
All right, y'all look good. Let's get into
this. You guys in person, but you know, we're just pulling ourselves together.
Well, let's get into some girl chat because it's some heavy conversation, all right? Up first, a death penalty case in Texas is getting national attention. A woman by the name of Melissa Lucio was sentenced to death for the murder of her 2-year-old daughter in 2007. Now, the state has halted the scheduled execution because of doubts that she committed the crime. Her lawyers and supporters say that she was found guilty after being pressured to confess during a 5-hour-long interrogation. Now the case will be handed to a lower court where her defense will try to prove her innocence once and for all. So ladies, what are your thoughts on the conversation around the death penalty in this country?
Lonnie, I think there is so much to be discussed when we talk about the death penalty in this country. The first thing that comes to mind for me is the confusion of people who are super pro-life, but at the same time support the death penalty. Like that, I personally just don't understand. On top of that, we now have certain states that are allowing a firing squad to be the way that the death penalty is handled, where literally they give people guns and they shoot the person to death. I don't understand it. I feel like that's wildly barbaric, and I'm just so curious, who are the people that actually do the firing?
Well, there are 4 states right now that have instituted firing squads. This is my problem with the death penalty. If you're not rich, you have a more increased chance of getting found guilty of capital murder.
Yeah.
And it also affects poor people, and people of color.
Yes.
For example, with this woman, she probably had a court-appointed attorney. And
right.
The way that they did it, they did not present enough evidence. And,
no.
And so her family didn't have the money to like do thorough investigations to help her to win her case. And that is my main problem with death penalties, is that it affects people of color and poor people, which
more
is
than
all
anybody.
People more than anybody. If you don't have the money to fight your case will be found guilty.
This specific case obviously is really wrong. Like, guys, this woman's child passed. Obviously, I don't even have a child yet. Jeannie, maybe you can speak to this after recently having a child. I would be traumatized if my child passed away. I wouldn't even be able to hear clearly what you were telling me, because my mind would be on the fact that my child is dead.
Oh, for sure.
And I think, just being honest, I would be like, sure, kill me. Yeah, take me to jail too. Like, I don't even care.
Right, well, I agree with you. And then the interrogation lasted for hours and hours, and they had a system where they yelled at her, yelled at her, and then they came really quietly and tried to shift things with her. So she was confused, she was traumatized, and she actually had a story, and some of her children, I believe she has like 14 kids.
14.
That they corroborated her, the events that would prove that she didn't do that, but none of that meant anything. And with me, with the death penalty, unless it's a heinous crime that we know for sure that this person committed, we can't play God. We can't say who lives and who dies. And that's where there's a lot of ifs in this particular situation. But I also think the death penalty, we have to be so sure that this person truly committed this heinous crime.
Yeah. Jeannie?
It's hard.
Absolutely. It's the interrogation process for me. I know that when you are deeply affected by the events of whatever the crime was, guilty or not, there has to be a better interrogation process. I'm bothered by this process that takes place amongst women who are trafficked. Because when women are trafficked, it's very hard for them to prove what has taken place to them. It's very hard to have evidence of, being coerced, being manipulated, being held in captivity. It's hard to prove these things. So just that process alone, there's a lot of women that are incarcerated because they have hurt their abuser in some way, and now that's being tried rather than the actual crime that got them there in the first place. So when it comes to this woman, I can't imagine what took place for her when she was getting interrogated for that many hours after her child has died. And also, they look for any word that just basically sounds like you admitted it.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what happened to this woman.
Yeah.
she's, you know, even when you throw your hands up, like, what do you want me to say? That I did it? Like that already can be
Right.
used.
And that's
You know,
what she
so
did.
they
Yeah,
were
that's
gonna
what
use that.
happened. You know, the state of Texas has had 574 executions already. There are 27 states that have the death penalty. 4 states offer execution by the firing squad. I want to say this again. The death penalty to me is very, is unequal when it comes to people of color
Yep.
and poor people because they can't afford the legal expertise.
Yes.
And so
Representation.
that's why we need to put a moratorium on it. It's not fair. And this is another example. This woman, Melissa's example, there was you know, evidence that was not presented to the jury.
Right.
There was investigations that was not presented to the jury, and she just snuck by. If it wasn't for, you know, the celebrity endorsements, if it wasn't for the
Right.
groups, you know, coming to speak on her behalf, you know, and they always do it at the last minute. So that's another issue that I have is that we gotta, you know, try to, you know, fund these groups, and then it's like it takes money to do that. So if it's taking money, and if you know that poor people can't afford the legal representation, put a moratorium on this, and let's, you know, this is supposed to be a country for all of us. We're all supposed to be granted the right to have, you know, equal and fair representation, and it's not. And this is just another example. And we're
Agree.
killing innocent people,
We are.
especially Black and brown people. So something has to be done about it. Oh.
Absolutely.
Good, well said.